Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Grapenden. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show, while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, this 2016 presidential election cycle has been one of the most bizarre, in so much as it has been contentious and heated from the very beginning, and that's due in no small part to the New York billionaire, businessman, real estate tycoon, and all-around vulgarian, Donald J. Trump, also known as John Barron, also known as John Miller. But before we dig into this idea of Trump loves trannies, we need to delve into another story that is attempting to be thrust onto the American people in an intellectually disingenuous fashion by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. And that, of course, is this alleged partnership between Ohio Governor John Kasich and Texas Senator Ted Cruz. They're trying to show this as some cahoots type of party between the two of them, as though they're scheming some super secret pact to use against the New York vulgarian. Of course, what's funny is, all it is not about voting, which is the way that the media has portrayed it. Actually, what it's about is, I'm not going to spend money in this state, and that'll give you clear grounds to spend money and try and win. It'll give you an opening. But the way that the media tried to play it, it was, I'm telling people how to vote. And the Cruz camp took exception to that and came out and said, no, we're not going to tell anybody how to exercise their right to vote, which is the way that it's supposed to be. But, you know, Jeremy, I think you would agree with me when I say that the media has been so irresponsible throughout this entire election cycle that this is the worst I've ever seen them.
Well, they're slanted. They're slanted in one direction. They don't care about the facts anymore. That's obvious. I mean, they'll report what facts they want to report because those ones, especially with certain candidates, they want to do everything they can to bolster up Trump. I mean, let's look at some of these talking heads and pundits. You got Sean Saggy Diaper Wanity, who's, yeah, but Trump. You have Little Orphanini, Yap Toto, Cooterfarian, riding bareback on a unicorn, farting rainbow fighter jets, and Coulter. Yeah, but Trump. It's all of these imbeciles. And I'm going to call them imbeciles because
that would be an insult to imbeciles.
Well, they know better than this. And yet they drank the quaffade, spewing from Donaldus Julius Caesar Trumpolini's little golden cup that he's had on his mantle in Trump Towers. Why? I don't understand why. They only want to report things and slant things in a way to make their boy look good.
Yeah.
They did it with McCain. They did it with Romney.
Yeah.
They didn't pull any of this crap of supporting, true conservatives. People want to say, well, Trump's a conservative. No, he's not. He's a Democrat. He's a Fabian.
And hell, he even said that I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't really want to do it. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican. That tells me right there that he's just doing this to be an usurper. He's being a disruptor. That is the role that he has intended to play throughout this entire thing. And he's been successful at that. He has been disruptive. He has been a vulgarian. He has driven it into the mud. I mean...
Yeah. Look at what he did for up until last week. His whole campaign was ridiculing the other candidates, doing his damnedest to attach them as GOP establishment, railing against the GOP establishment, and then all of a sudden he's got a new campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who came right out and said, well, Trump gave us a mandate to, unite with the establishment.
Yeah, he's projecting. He's projecting an image. He's projecting something that is just to be custom tailored to an audience. Well, guess what that is, folks? That is what a politician does. It's called pandering to an audience to pander for votes. That is what Trump is trying to do now. Now, there's an interesting development with this, Jeremy, something that you've mentioned before, and I thought about this after reading how the judge in the New York class action fraud case that's being brought against Trump for Trump University, well, here's the reason he probably officially threw his hat in the ring. Folks, if you don't know, if you declare that you're running for president, that you're a candidate for the office of President of the United States of America, they sort of have to postpone your case until after the convention. And then if you get the nomination, they have to postpone it until after the election. And then if you get the election, they have to postpone it until after you're done because of this thing known as sovereign immunity. I think it's ridiculous, but that's the way it works. And so Trump is fighting tooth and nail to have this case bumped to after the Cincinnati Convention. And the whole reason he's doing so is because he's running as a candidate. Well, I think that may be the real reason why he is doing this. Because remember, he bends the rules to his favor. He said so. On numerous occasions he has said so. And wouldn't this be bending the rules to benefit himself?
Absolutely. Now let's look at this class action for a minute. When did Trump University go under and people start filing lawsuits? When did this class action lawsuit happen?
2003 was when it was first filed.
2003. So since 2003, he's known about this. And he's postponed it and postponed it and postponed it. Done everything he could to keep it out of the court. And he exhausted all of those remedies, and now he's got one remedy left. I know. I'll throw my hat in the ring as a presidential candidate. That way I can invoke sovereign immunity.
Mm-hmm. And, Jeremy, here's an interesting part of that, too. That might explain why none of his kids were registered as Republicans. It might explain why his attorney wasn't registered as a Republican, why members of his own staff weren't. Yeah.
Why he fired all of his campaign staff in all of the other states where he's won primaries and caucuses. Because, see, Donald Trump is a smart businessman. He knows how, smart businessmen, whether they do things for good or evil, they're still smart in some respect. And here's the thing. If I was Donald Trump, I would, and this is what my intention was, or part of my intention. See, he doesn't have any intention of winning.
No, he never did.
Tell me. He has intentions of winning, and I think he can win. Wrong. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it would be like a person, what are you doing with this campaign? It would be no different than some despotic dictator from another country wanting and going and invading all other countries in that region and never fortifying themselves to maintain control of those countries.
Right.
In other words, just going on a bloodlust rampage to destroy everything in its path just because he can. Well, that's not enough justification. He has to have a real reason as to why he's doing this. Enter in the sovereign immunity with this class action lawsuit. There's his real justification for doing this.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Because all those other campaign states, he doesn't have anybody on the ground. He doesn't have anybody to fortify those positions. How is he going to win those states in the general election if there's nobody there working for him to get the votes, to maintain the votes that he has?
Well, and think of it again also in terms of who he was a donor to before all of this. He was the biggest donor to Hillary Rotten Clinton. So as far as he's concerned, this is a win-win-win situation.
No matter what happens, no matter how this all plays out, Trump doesn't care. You know why? Because he's already made money off of this. He has made money off of this. He's made money off of the suckers that were born the very minute that he entered into the race and they latched onto him. Why? Because many of them have done what? Thrown money his way. Even though he says he's self-financed, they contributed to his campaign. Not only that, but they say, hey, Trump's going to be president. Let's go to Trump Plaza. Let's go do this. Let's go give his business money, which he is still pocketing. He's made money off of this whole thing. And he stands to make a hell of a lot more, no matter if he wins or loses. And guess what, folks? He can't win. There's no way he can win. Why? Because he cannot beat Hillary. He can't win on top of that because he doesn't want to.
He doesn't even have he doesn't have the logistics in place. You see, if you don't have the logistics in place, there's no way you can win. It's because you don't have any type of infrastructure, and that means that you're going to have to start all over from scratch. That would be stupid. It makes no sense unless you're purposefully self-sabotaging. You're being self-destructive. But he's more than just being self-destructive. He's attempting to destroy the conservative movement. And Rush Limbaugh said today that if Cruz wins on the second ballot, it will be the destruction of the Republican Party. I could not disagree more. Could not disagree more.
I think that would actually unite the party, and it wouldn't be the destruction of the party, it would be the destruction of the elitism within the party.
I think Rush has been a little sloppy with his words on some of this.
Yeah, and, and Rush, to his credit, he's trying to maintain his composure that he always has with every other election.
The neutrality.
Neutrality. He's trying not to endorse a certain candidate. I can't speak for Rush. I'm not going to try and speak for Rush. But this is what I think he's trying to do. Now, and that's fine. That's okay, because I understand why he's doing it. At the end of the day, it's about the bottom dollar for him, too. Because he is, after all, a businessman. Now, I want to go back to having the boots on the ground in these states.
Right.
And going back to Trump being a businessman. See, having a business mentality, Trump is looking at all of those boots on the ground in all of those primary and caucus states where he's won. Having those people there, well, they're dead weight. They're costing him money now. They are a liability rather than an asset. So, of course, if he has to continue to pay them, he's going to cut them loose. Because why continue to pay somebody if you have no intentions of running? You cut them loose, that way you maintain that money. It's still coming in. You're not taking a hit. You're not looking to win anyways. So why continue to throw good money after bad if you have no intentions of winning? And people, I don't think, are looking at it from that perspective. See, Trump wants to interject business into the political arena, but he doesn't want people to look at the political arena and debunk or try to dissolve the business notion that he's bringing into it, and showing what his true intentions are with it.
Right.
And that's the issue. And a lot of people don't understand that. I have a business degree. I don't have a master's degree in business. It's just a little old associate's degree. But the thing is, this is business 101. This is one of the first things you learn when getting a business degree. It pertains to marketing, and that's what Trump is doing. He is marketing himself to be something that he's not, to something that he said he's not, in fact, something that he said he would become if he had to.
Well, you know, but you know what? When that comes down to political, to the arena of politics, that steps away from being marketing into outright lying. It's dishonest. It's intellectually disingenuous, because when you stop and think about it, running a nation is so much more than running a business. And the reason that I say that with as much confidence and vigor and zeal as I do is because you have to realize that in business, yes, almost everything is negotiable. But when it comes to our fundamental and inalienable rights, when it comes to that sacred social compact and contract, our Constitution, those things are non-negotiable. That cannot go to the negotiating table, because then you start to unravel the social fabric of the United States of America. You unravel everything that we stand for, everything that we represent. And that is a dangerous situation in which we just cannot allow that to occur. Because if we do, then it allows the Fabian socialists to come along to plant their seeds of chaos, anarchy, and destruction, and that would allow them to carry out everything that they've been wanting to do for well over 1 century now. And again, this brings in the Pied Piper analogy, with Trump being the Pied Piper of disillusioned conservatives. What price are we going to have to pay for Trump? What price is it going to come down to? Because when we can't pay that price, and I guarantee we can't, he's going to play his pipes and dance off with our posterity, leaving the country as a shadow of its former self, a shell of itself, to collapse.
And that right there is the price that is going to be paid. Mm-hmm. And if people are willing to go that route and sacrifice our future generation for what? Because they drank the quaffade? Because
he's a straight shooter. He's a straight shooter.
Yeah, because they became disillusioned because and this really strikes a chord with me, because I know a lot of individuals that are a lot smarter than this. They are a lot smarter than this, and they've allowed themselves to become disillusioned. Why? Because, everybody else is doing it. He's a true outsider. This and that. He's not a politician.
You know what it is? It's the complacency of despair. It's the complacency of despair.
It's defeatism. It's defeatism.
Well, yes.
It's absolute defeatism. It's what it is. It's, some of these individuals are, I still hold a very high amount of respect for these individuals, but sometimes I just want to, smack them and say, hey, snap out of it. Because this is not what you are all about. This is not what you have lived, and this is not how you lived your life. This is not how you built your character. This is not who you are.
Yeah, it's not the message you have conveyed all of your life. And if
it's they're abandoning their principles.
Yeah.
Why? If you don't have your principles, if you will not stand for your principles, you'll fall for anything.
And that's what Trump's banking on. That's what Trump's banking on. You see, that's what makes these snake oil salesmen, these carnival barkers, so dangerous. Is they prey upon this. When we call him a con artist, and I know I brought this point up on a previous episode of The Wright Flyer, but it bears repeating. The con in con artist means confidence. He's a confidence man. What does that mean? It means he gains your confidence. He will sit there, he will work tirelessly and nonstop to convince you that he has some great miracle product that will turn your life around, that will make you hunky-dory, better than you've ever been in your entire life. Except it's too good to be true. And folks, if something sounds too good to be true 9 times out of 10, that's because it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we can spit out all of these analogies the day long, and it still comes down to one very simple thing. Trump is a fraud.
Well, that's all he's ever been. It's all he knows how to be.
He was never raised with any principles or morals. And I asked the question, and to our passengers that are listening right now, you've seen the question that I posed on Twitter and that our show's account put up. What are Trump's principles, and where in the Constitution, the United States Constitution, our shared Constitution, where are they rooted?
Article non, clause 0, or Article non, sections existent, clause 0. Yes, that's where you'll find it.
And that question, for 2 days straight, retweets, likes, so on and so forth. Conversations were started about it. We need to keep that conversation going, because it's quite apparent and very obvious that individuals that once held esteemed principles and values have forsaken their principles and values to jump aboard the failed train, the Trump train, the train, whatever, trainee train. Because, see, this is part of the problem. I have principles and values and morals and ethics that were instilled in me growing up. Many people would say, well, it was kind of a crass and unorthodox way in which my parents raised my brothers and I. But here's the thing. The way that I was raised is why I am the individual I am today. Now, if I was to take those principles that were instilled in me growing up as a child, as an adolescent, and a young man, and still some of those principles and values I'm learning more from my parents that I pass on to my kids, which I intend on passing on to my grandkids, if I was to set all of those aside and go against everything that I know to be right and true, and jump on board and support somebody who has been the biggest donator of monies to Hillary Clinton, who does not have any firm stance on whether or not abortion is right or wrong, is okay with grown men going into the women's laboratory facilities when there may be possibly young girls in there, or for that fact, predatory women going into the male's restroom for young boys, and he's okay with that. How in the hell can I support something like that? If I did, I would be abandoning everything that I was taught. Yeah. It would dishonor my parents.
Well, you know, Jeremy, what you're bringing up here is something that goes along with this notion of political correctness and the historical revisionism. But one of the three-legged prongs that we haven't talked about is moral relativism. This is moral relativism rearing its ugly head yet again. And Donald Trump showed that he wanted to take the politically correct low road on this, the dirt road, because it's turned into a mudslinging contest. I thought Donnie came out and reiterated time and time again that he didn't want to be politically correct. He'd rather be correct. Well, not only is he wrong, he's dead wrong on this.
Yeah, and again, I can't support somebody like that. And I don't understand how anybody can support somebody like that. I mean, everything that he has been doing is indicative of Fabianism and the Democratic Party, socialism, communism, fascism, every other ism you can think of, minus conservatism, because there's nothing conservative about him. Absolutely nothing. You say, oh, well, he supports the Second Amendment. Folks, conservatism is not just about the right to keep and bear arms. And by the way, on the Second Amendment, guess what little Donnie Boy did? In 2012 or 2013, he supported Dianne Feinstein assault weapons ban bill. He supported her on it. He supported our federal government passing legislation or attempting to pass legislation to violate your rights. Why would I support him? And why, for the life of me, would anybody support him?
Well, nobody in their right mind should support him because he's not standing up for the values that are contained within the four corners of our Constitution. You see, folks, this is why Article 6, Clause 2 is so important. When we say that the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land, that means anything that goes to the contrary, anything that tries to even approach the semblance of law that directly contradicts that clear and concise language is null and void. Void ab initio, void from the very beginning. And that is how we have to start treating this. That is how we have to act with regard to it, because what is happening is they are purposefully, relentlessly pushing this country further and further to the left, but at the same time, they're stripping and depriving us of our fundamental and inalienable rights, which is something they don't have the earthly authority to do. They just don't.
Well, let's not forget about this when it comes to the Constitution. Remember what Donnie Boy said? I never read the Constitution because I didn't see any value in it. Remember that? He never read the Constitution because he didn't see any value in it.
Yeah.
In other words, what he really meant there was, I'm not going to read the Constitution. I don't want to have anything to do with it because the values that are contained within the four corners of it are diametrically opposed to my lifestyle and my so-called quote-unquote values that I have and use to maintain my lifestyle. That's what he meant by that. It's not that he doesn't find the Constitution invaluable. It's that he doesn't find it valuable to fit him. In other words, he doesn't support it. In other words, he is completely against it. And that, folks, would be no different than Adolf Hitler living amongst us or any other tin-pot dictator and potentate being able to reside as a citizen here in the United States thinking that they don't have to abide by it. Though the values in the four corners of the Constitution don't apply to him, therefore, he thinks the rules and laws don't apply to him. This is why he's violated the law numerous times. He's violated federal law, bankruptcy law, filing bankruptcy 4 times in a span of 11 years. He's taken property away from people by the use of eminent domain and violating their Fifth Amendment rights. He thinks that the law doesn't apply to him. He has had people removed from his property because they are carrying a firearm. Well, I want my people to be safe. You cannot violate the rights of others to secure the rights of others. You can't do it.
But that's the thing, Jeremy. He doesn't believe in anybody else's rights. You know, the way he's pandered to the veterans throughout this thing, throughout this election cycle, and then you look at the way that he put those planners in front of Trump Tower to prevent them from, even though they had a license with the city to peddle their wares, he didn't want them doing it there because it would devalue his property. So you see, folks, it always with Trump comes back to Trump. It's always about Trump. It's always got to be about Trump. And that's the only thing Trump cares about, that and the greenback dollar. And that is not the way you can run this country, because the country involves more than that. And the reason that it involves more than that is because the country itself is made up of these fundamental and inalienable rights to the popular sovereigns that are endowed to the people by their creator, meaning that no earthly authority can encroach upon, belittle, strip away those rights. It's illogical. Anyone that tries to do that without due process under the law is illegitimate. It's rogue, it's tyrannical, it's fascist in its nature. And that's why we have to stand up for our representative Republican form of government. And that means to make the Constitution be able to protect us, we have to protect the Constitution. And folks, we will delve into a lot more with the Trump camp as the show goes forth. Now, folks, one of the things that we brought up in the first segment of this program was the idea that Trump is going to be turning to this transgender bathroom issue. And of course, there's been a bunch of hoopla with that with respect to Target stores, where they've essentially been telling people that they have to allow this, even though it is abnormal behavior. It goes against everything that is natural, that we've known as being ordinary and natural behavior. And it's as though there is really this push or design to push a twisted, radical, extremist left-wing agenda that is going to fundamentally transform the United States. Think back to 2008 when then presidential nominee Barack Hussein Obama said that he would fundamentally transform the United States. That's what we're starting to see unfurl in our country today, right here and now. And it's disgusting. It truly is disgusting because it is attempting to draw us away from the things that matter in this nation, the things that matter the most. And they matter because it goes against our principles. You see, they don't teach principles anymore. It's all about me, the here and the now, and feeling good, and nothing about the future or consequences that could result from behaviors. And I think, Jeremy, that this is what Zygmunt Dobbs and Archibald Roosevelt were really trying to warn us about all the way back in the 1950s.
I think it goes back further than that.
Of course it does.
Look at the Russian dictator who said the best way to destroy the America and the republic that it is, you have to infiltrate it from within, and there's three things that you can use.
Yep, that was Nikita Khrushchev.
Drugs, alcohol, and pornography.
Yep, that was Nikita Khrushchev that said that.
Yes, and it's coming to fruition. I mean, we can go back, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 4,000 years. Let's go back to Sodom and Gomorrah. I mean, God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah because of things of homosexual behavior. And now we're allowing it to run rampant in this country as if it's some kind of new social norm, all because of what? Political correctness. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Trump supposed to be the anti-PC candidate? Yet he's embracing this. What does that say about him? It just proves, again, he's consistently inconsistent. He doesn't know what he stands for. He doesn't stand for anything other than for himself.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because him not standing for anything actually brings up part of this three-legged standard. We've spoken of historical revisionism and the evils of that and the way that it has been polluting our educational system for such a long time now. And then there's the cancerous doctrine of political correctness, which we, of course, here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have declared open war upon. But the third part is moral relativism. It means a lack of believing in anything. It means driving towards this kumbaya moment where everyone is supposed to come together and just feel good because that means there's no right and there's no wrong and therefore there's no superior or correct or incorrect position, that's not only confusing, it's maddening, and it goes against the natural order of things. So if you stop and think about it, this whole doctrine of moral relativism, which is part of that three-legged stool, it's all designed to oppose the natural law. But if you oppose the natural law, you're opposing the Constitution, because that's what the Constitution is rooted in.
Where's it going to end? Where's it going to stop? See, this moral relativism crap is, you can go right along the same lines of logic of, well, this person's a person, it doesn't matter what they've done and what atrocities they've committed, they're still a human being, so we have to accept them. Okay, I'll tell you what, why don't you go and interview Charles Manson and say, you know what, we know the things that you've done, but that's okay, we're going to look past it because you're still a human being and we're going to accept you. What a bunch of crap.
Well, it's a false...
It's Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman killer. Try pulling that garbage with him. He was devoid of any emotions whatsoever.
And of course, that comes back to the whole notion of our rights end where another person's rights begin. And that too is part of the foundation of our natural law system. But again, you're not going to ever hear this from the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, because they don't want you to think about it. Because, again, as always, it works against their propagandistic agenda. And tying this back to the previous point, their propagandistic agenda is one of moral relativism. You see, that's why there is this war on religion, war on faith, this war on our traditions. It's all about attempting to fundamentally transform us so that we lose our way, but not only lose our way, but also to rebuild us. But the thing that they want to rebuild us with is a Fabian socialist nightmare, one that should have no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States.
And this is how they do it. They initiate all of these wars on everything that is rooted in natural law in our Constitution, but they hide those wars by creating false wars like the war on women, the war on drugs, the war on poverty, all this nonsensical crap. And then at the end of the day, when they have this whole, like with the net neutrality thing, or with the hate speech, all this hate, all the hate crime speech and all this other stuff, you can't say this. You can't call a person, homosexual a fag or gay or queer or this or that because it hurts their feelings. But yet they will turn right around and do the exact same thing that they preach against, and they get away with it. Why? Because they're the ones who are pushing this agenda. So it's okay for them to do it, but anybody else, the average American, Joe Public, you can't do it because it's harmful to a person's psyche. People had better wake up. People had better pull their heads out of their posteriors and learn how to deal with things. Do not allow your emotions to dictate your life.
And you see, that's what makes Donald Trump so dangerous, is that he plays this emotional game. He is exposing this raw emotionalism that is gripping the base of the gutless opposition party, or GOP. And we all know that the reason that this is there is that we are sick and tired of being betrayed. We're sick and tired of being lied to. Yes, that is an attribute that is shared universally with the GOP base. But these disillusioned conservatives that have allowed themselves to be intoxicated by the tune of the Pied Piper, that being Donaldoff, Julius Caesar, Trumpolini, they're allowing themselves to reach such a pinnacle in the emotional state that they can be easily manipulated. And that is what he's doing. But when you stop and look at the structure of his campaign, as we've done, the firing of his staff in every state where he's won a primary or caucus, the inability to continue building the structure that would be necessary to continue the momentum which would push him on to victory in the general election? It's not there. He's taken it away. Why? Because he never desired to win in the first place. Isn't that part of the problem that we had with Mitt Romney back in 2012? I thought it was.
Yep. Yeah. And in fact, Romney, in no uncertain terms, pretty much said, I gave my all, I gave up. The problem is when you have the establishment that Romney belongs to. See, people want to say that Trump is not part of the establishment. Wrong.
Trump is part of the establishment. He funded it. He funded it.
He's funded it. He created it. And here's the thing. All this nonsense that he's this outsider. He's not a politician. Here's the thing. It's just like you mentioned. We are all sick and tired of being lied to by those who we've elected. Everybody is. Mm-hmm. Now, what Trump's campaign is a living, breathing conspiracy theory put into full motion. Because there's an element, just like with any conspiracy theory, you have to have some form of elemental truth. And the elemental truth in this case is that the American people are fed up with the government and them lying to the voting base. That is the only element of truth in all of Trump's campaign. Now, he used that, and he springboarded off of that to perpetuate his agenda. It's just like the 9/11 conspiracy theorists. Well, 9/11 was an inside job and this, that, the towers came down. There's your element of truth. The towers came down. They were hit. And then they want to take that element of truth and spin their own web of lies in order to perpetuate their agenda. This is no different with Trump's campaign.
Yeah, but just like them there, it's just taking one peppercorn of truth and then spreading this Trump-spiracy theory to such an extent that it's like a surrealist painting. It's like taking a lens and putting it in front of the camera so that you wind up with a Pablo Picasso style painting. But that's not the real perspective. That is not how reality looks. It's not how it works.
Right. And here's the other part of this. Trump is in bed with and in cahoots and indebted to. People say, oh, he's funny. No, Trump is indebted to people. He owes people money. And one of the key players that he owes money to is the same key player that helped perpetuate the 9/11 conspiracy theory. George Soros, also known as George Soros. He owes, $120 million to Soros for the Trump project or whatever it is in Chicago.
I guess it's a Trump Plaza. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. Trumptopia or something. But it's the whole thing is he is aligned with these individuals. He's aligned with certain individuals that nobody wants to take the time to do the research on. But we have. We've done research on George Soros how many years ago?
Oh,
our first Air Marshal Nelson Ward and I actually dug deep into George Soros, deeper than any other person we know, and we've passed that information on to individuals like Glenn Beck, Pat and Stu, and Mark and various other individuals, and they ran with it. Good. And this is part of the reason, going back to one of our other episodes that we did, Randy, with people attacking individuals like Glenn Beck. This is why they're attacking them, because they're not holding back on the truth. Just like we're not going to hold back on the truth. And we've received death threats. People are attacking us. Good, I'm glad. Keep it coming, because all that does is prove that we are correct. Because you have to attack individuals. You attack the truth because you fear the truth. If you don't like the truth and you don't like what's being said, you have two options. Suck it up, buttercup, or pack your stuff and get out of our country.
But it's interesting. Bringing up this George Soros part, it highlights a certain lie that Trump has been able to get away with. and that is that he's self-funding. But he's never self-funded, and he's never really done anything other than accept people's money and engage in loaning himself money that his business would then pay off. That's money laundering. But there's another lie that's been bought, hook, line, and sinker. And this one's particularly important because we're having yet another round of primaries on Tuesday evening, this evening. And one of the lies that's been bought is that in all of the states that are going tonight, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and some of the others,
Mexico,
they were saying that most of the voters there, at least according to Red State, feel that if no one gets 1237, then the top runner-up, meaning the first one who had the most, should just get the nomination. Something like 68% of the people polled. But again, we take this with a grain of salt because polling has been notoriously inaccurate before, and it's been hit or miss throughout this 2016 election cycle, because we've seen that constantly Donald Trump underperforms as compared to the polls, and consistently Texas Senator Ted Cruz overperforms with respect to what was going on in the polls.
And, I stated this before, I don't put any stock in the polls at all. As far as I'm concerned, they only serve two purposes: to teach people how to count by a common core, and to give the opposition to those polls something to complain about. It creates a sense of self-worth for them so that they can feel important. Oh, I know how to read this poll. I'm against it, so that means that I have some kind of creditworthiness and a dog in this race. No, what it means is that you don't know how to think for yourself. You allow a poll to dictate your logic and thinking when it comes to this. Instead of doing the research, instead of looking into the state's laws, the election laws of the states, regarding the primaries or the caucuses, and actually having a fluent understanding of how the process works, you just want to believe what everybody else tells you. That's part of the problem. This is why we had the situation we have, because A, you elected individuals that turned out being liars to you, because why? You believed what somebody else told you that they were going to do or not do.
And it comes down to what they're doing is they're painting a false narrative. And, you know, one of the old sayings goes is that if you look at politics, the thing that matters more than facts a lot of times is perception. And that is where Trump has been so damaging, because he's been such a demagogue, because he is a vulgarian. He goes out and repeats these lies in a Goebbels style over and over and over again ad nauseum, to the point where people are starting to believe it. And I think that's what the polling, even though we are not giving it full credence, I can certainly see where that pattern would be, because not only has Trump been repeating this lie, but the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media has carried off with this lie and has just started running with it. And, you know, with certain people that we know, even though they are much smarter than this, and they have been pillars of the community, people that have pointed out how to spot this type of manipulative behavior before, they've been duped into accepting it, duped into believing it. And it is, in a way, it is heart-wrenching to really see that, because we don't want to see anybody in this country manipulated in that form and fashion, because it is abuse. There is no other way to describe it. That is abusive behavior.
It can actually be described as an ultimate way of infringing upon people's rights.
Of course.
Because what you're doing is you are removing the essence of the individual's obligation and duty as a sovereign citizen to vet these candidates, which means you are ultimately disparaging their right to vote, because you are giving them a false sense of perception of reality into voting in a way that would be detrimental to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, what Trump is doing is he's bamboozling individuals into voting for him, which will ultimately lead to the deprivation of their rights. So he's forcing the person to exercise their rights to deprive themselves of their own rights.
Right. And going back to this type of perception game, think back to when he was saying that those protesters that interrupted his events were infringing upon his First Amendment rights. First of all, they can't because they're private citizens. But second of all, it's basically he projecting. He only selectively shows this faux outrage, and that's when it goes against him. But remember when he claimed that Cruz was stealing all of his delegates in Colorado and the various other states, he sent protesters, like 20 of them, out there to stand up to him. And of course, the fact that he could only amass 20 of them is a laughable spectacle, but it shows there is this hypocritical aspect of his nature. And I think that's what rubs me the wrong way. Because when you stop and look at the way that he acts as a brash vulgarian, he tries to act as though the whole system's rigged and unfair. Except that when it's rigged and unfair towards him, we don't hear a peep. We don't hear a peep.
No. And here's another question. We know he doesn't have any intention of looking. So here's the question posed to our listening audience and various other individuals. If he doesn't have any intention of winning, why would he pull this charade and throw this out there to say, well, the election's rigged and everybody's against me and my rights are being violated in the First Amendment, blah, blah, blah. I'll tell you why he throws it out there.
It's projection.
It's the waters. It's smoke and mirrors. It's all sleight of hand. Whatever magical acronym you want to use for it, or caricature, that's exactly what he's doing. He is creating this whole facade. Again, he is telling everybody exactly what he is all about, and then he's surrounding it with things that are false perception. It's just like that YouTube clip, Randy, that you played the other night in your soul flight. He says, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm off doing this, I'm on my
job. Yeah, I build a tower, I go and talk about my tower, then I come back, I have dinner, and then maybe I get 2 hours sleep.
And his kids ask him, Dad, why are you doing this? And he says, I don't know, I don't really want to do this.
Boy, that doesn't sound like somebody whose heart's in it, does it?
He throws it out there, and then he says all this other stuff to get people whipped right back up into a frenzy to distract them from what's really going on. Do you know who else was good at this?
Hitler.
Adolf Hitler. Hitler was a masterful genius at doing this.
Yeah.
Masterful genius.
So was Vladimir Ilyich Lenin.
Yes. So was Mao and Pol Pot, Mussolini.
And what happens to be the common denominator of these people? What happens to be the common denominator? Could it be that they're, I don't know, tyrannical dictators?
Fabianism.
Yeah.
Fabianism.
Of course.
Pure and simple.
Yes. And what is at the root of Fabianism if it isn't tyranny? You see, folks, this is what is so important. When you stop and think about it, of the candidates who remain in the race right now, there is but one who is not a proponent of Fabian socialism. I know it may seem very harsh that I'm saying this, but it's true. There is but one candidate, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, who does not espouse Fabianism. John Kasich, the son of a mailman, he espouses Fabianism. Hillary Clinton, she's the queen of it. Bernard Sanders, he's the undertaker for it. Donald J. Trump, he's the mouthpiece of it.
The court gesture.
Well, no, that'd have to be funny.
If you will.
Yeah.
He's the scribe, is what he is.
Mm-hmm.
And, and here's something else that's important that individuals need to know. And Randy, I'm sure you're familiar with this case.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure I get the name right and correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But Meladin v. Texas.
Yeah, I think that's right.
It is the Supreme Court case where Ted Cruz argued and won to ensure that the United States remained a sovereign country.
Yes.
Because that dealt with the UN and all of these other things. Ted Cruz went and argued in front of the Supreme Court and said, no, you cannot, as a government or as a entity that is representing other governments, remove our sovereignty as a people, as the popular sovereigns. You cannot do that. It is contrary to what our country is founded on.
And you know what that shows? It shows that he has a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our Constitution. And again, folks, this is why we say it's so important to foster and develop such a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of the Constitution.
Now, if Ted Cruz had not gone before the Supreme Court and argued that case and won, I shudder to think what would have become of our republic.
So do I.
It was because of Ted Cruz arguing that case that today we still are a sovereign nation. Now, I dare anybody to show me where Donald Trumpolini has even thought about doing anything of that nature, or Hillary Clinton, the whore of Babylon, Dennis the Mushroom,
Kasich.
John the Mushroom Kasich, Dennis the Mushroom Kasich, whatever his name is these days. Whereas any of these other candidates actually stood up for we the people, has actually espoused the notion of, I don't want the government to be the sole decision maker on behalf of the people. It is not their job. It is we the people. It is our authority. Folks, I need to understand that Ted Cruz does not want the government to be intrusive in our lives. He wants to be president because in doing so, he has the working, fluent, understanding knowledge of the Constitution and what it means to be a sovereign citizen. He wants to give the authority back to we the people. He wants to empower us. And what does Ted Cruz and all the other candidates want to do?
You mean, what does Trump?
Themselves.
You meant Trump.
Donald Trump. They want to empower themselves.
Right.
And infringe upon we the people. They want to be the ones that say, do as I say, not as I do.
And if you ask the question of why they do that, if you ask the question of why they do it, it's because they want to take that power away and put it to themselves and do it in an illicit fashion so that it deprives us. It makes the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty in this great representative republic of ours weak. And not just weak, it's a power play, because they understand inherently that this is part of who they are. And that if they take that power away, it gives them the strength to take everything else away from us. So you see, the linchpin starts with the fundamental building block. Again, this all ties back to the natural law that forms the bedrock foundation of our country. That's why the preamble starts with the line, we the people. That's your popular sovereigns. So these nefarious politicians that sit there and want to strip us of our fundamental and inalienable rights and of our sovereignty are doing so because they want to be New Age feudalists, as de Tocqueville said all socialists are.
Yes. And again, this is what Zygmunt Dobbs and Archibald Roosevelt warned us about.
Mm-hmm.
Going all the way back to this, it's the tentacles of political correctness, revisionism, indoctrination of our youth and society as a whole, and now moral relativism.
Mm-hmm.
You tie all those things together, and if you use all four of those tentacles at one time from different angles, the people that succumb to that have no idea which to combat first or throw up the defenses for to stave off, whatever tentacle's coming at them.
Right, and it's not going to go away either. And the reason it's not going to go away is we're seeing these things swirl together to form some bigger monstrosity. And I actually have a major, major case here that we're going to cover in more detail at this upcoming part of the show. But it's as Jeremy is saying here, we're seeing these people work towards building this larger goal, working towards manipulating the people at an even greater rate, and it's all about power. You see, that's what it's come down to, going all the way back to the inception of this country over 230 years ago. It is a question of power, and we will jump into that right in the next segment. And folks, the story that I'm going to bring up now as we enter this third and final segment of our program is this. At Harvard Law, the law school that is the alma mater of my maternal grandfather, there has been a very shocking development. According to Red State and the Wright Scoop, apparently the conservative students, conservative or right-leaning students at that institution have allegedly been investigated by school administrators. Now, folks, bear with me as I give you a little bit of background information on this. It goes back to the removing of the royal seal on Harvard Law's documentations, buildings, whatnot. That's the symbol of the school. And it all roots back to the summer of political correctness that was the summer of 2015. And there was this group that formed of these left-wing activist students that said the royal seal must fall. And in response to this, after they got the seal removed, the internet, being what it is, created an anonymous blog that was associated with the law school called Royal Asses, where it exposed the people that were behind getting the seal removed, and it lampooned them. But it never made any threats of violence towards them. It never threatened to do anything to them. And the group, the Royal Seals Must Fall, wanted the FBI to hack into this website and provide them with the information of who it was. And the administrators were trying to get Harvard police to do that as well. And they were investigating anyone who had a right-wing background on campus. Folks, this is diametrically opposed to everything that we hold near and dear in this country. It goes against everything that is with us, because what it does is it shows that we are being attacked for ideology. But that is against the First Amendment. And yes, while this isn't necessarily a government institution that's doing this, they do accept federal funding grants. Basically, all of those federal student loans, that makes them an agent of the government. That means that if this is true, they are violating the fundamental and inalienable rights of those right-leaning students. It's despicable.
Well, that's no different than individuals within the Trump camp publishing the names and addresses and phone numbers of the delegates at certain primary conventions in states that voted for Ted Cruz instead of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Or even more so, it's no different than, was it, I can't remember the media outlet that published the names of concealed carry holders and...
Oh, that was in San Antonio, Texas. I forget the name of the paper, but it was a was a San Antonio liberal rag.
Well, yeah, and there was one in New York as well where it happened, to where during that whole thing with what's that guy's name in New York?
Cuomo?
Yeah, I think Bloomberg had something to do with it. I don't. Cuomo probably had something to do with it as well, but Bloomberg most definitely probably had something to do with it.
Or was it
was individuals
de Blasio
that owned, that owned the firearms and had actual licenses and so on and so forth, and it was all because of
Umpqua.
Umpqua
Community college, yeah.
It's just, what is it that, again, these are the elitists that are doing this. It's okay for them to do it, but when individuals like Glenn Beck or Mark Levin or ourselves dig deep into a person's past and history and their association, and we bring all that information to the forefront and put it out to the public, we get death threats, or they threaten to shut us down, or whatever the case is. And
there's an important distinction to be made, too. The people that we dig into are people that put themselves out to the public. They are ones who voluntarily go out and provide information to the public. That's not the case with carry conceal holders. That is an invasion of privacy. And you see, it goes back to something that we mentioned going into our first episode, which aired on September 11th of 2015. And that is this dangerous game of semantics that the left plays into. Think about what it is that they're doing. They're twisting the meanings of words here. Public figure, or invasion of privacy, or an imminent threat to society itself. They use these and they try and manipulate them to become what is known in legal parlance as a term of art, when in fact, it's quite clear what their definition should be and how these words should be used. And so what they're doing is diabolical. It's despicable. And the reason it flows like this is because they are trying to use the law to destroy itself. And isn't that a bit like what the ACLU said that they would use the Constitution to do? That they would, in essence...
Roger Nash Baldwin.
Yes, that Roger Nash Baldwin said that we would, in essence, use the Constitution to destroy itself.
It's the same... It's the same mantra, it's the same ideology, it's the same agenda all the way across the board. The ACLU, with them being a communist organization, started by communists, Roger Nash Baldwin and Crystal Eastman. Yes, Crystal Eastman, the great aunt of Linda McCarthy, Paul McCarthy's wife, devout communists. And then you had individuals that one of the first cases that they ever handled, or people that were families they represented, was the Keller family, Helen Keller. And Helen Keller's family were all devout communists. They were actually card-carrying members of the American Communist Party. Every single one of them. And the ACLU latched right on with it. Because, now you're attacking a disabled person who was deaf and blind. And, deaf, dumb, and blind. Well, no, I'm not. And even if I was, she's dead, so it doesn't matter. Well, it's not politically correct. It's such a...
Of course not.
Shut up. There's no such thing as politically correct on this show. It's not going to happen. It's you to make a point. It's the facts. And again, if you don't like the truth, you have two options. Suck it up, Buttercup, and deal with it, or get the hell out of my country. I'm tired of this.
Right.
I'm sick and tired of it.
Right.
This is why our country is in shambles.
But, an interesting thing to tie this all back to what Zygmunt Dobbs and Archibald Roosevelt were warning us about with Dobbs's magnus opus of Keynes at Harvard. Notice the school where it all started. Dobbs was convinced that Harvard was the linchpin upon which the Fabian socialists would infect their poison or inject their poison into the body politic of the United States. And he was warning of this all the way back in the 1950s. And we see that once again, where are the ninny hammers of political correctness, of moral relativism, of the destructive forces of death, chaos, anarchy, and destitution striking? at Harvard Law School. So again, folks, remember, when you don't learn from history, you are doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. And it seems that we are in the midst of the rinse, repeat, recycle stage here with these left-wing shenanigans that are occurring at Harvard Law School. It's despicable.
Well, it's like that thing that we mentioned before. You hammer down the nail that sticks out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they're doing. And you and I, here at the Wright Flyer, along with Glenn Beck, Stu and Pat, and over at the Blaze,
Mm-hmm.
Mark Levin, and various other individuals all across the country that are standing up against this stuff, we are the nails that are sticking out. And unfortunately for those people wielding those hammers, they're not strong enough to swing that hammer hard enough to bend us over, to bend the nails down, because we're not going anywhere.
Well, the reason they're going to have trouble doing that, Jeremy, is because of what our foundation is. They can't remove us from the foundation of the Constitution and the natural law tenets that form it.
Because we will not abandon our principles.
Right.
That is why.
And because of what it is indestructible. It is timeless. And because it is of such permanence in nature, they can't drive us through. It will break the hammer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that there's a whole slew of other individuals that we can mention, specifically with, you know, friends of ours on Twitter, followers of ours on Twitter.
Anne-Marie Morell with the Pillow.
Yeah,
Ava Armstrong, Anne-Marie Morell.
Anne-Marie Morell,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, folks, if you would, send up your prayers for Anne-Marie Morell Politichicks. She could certainly use them. We need her to stay in this fight with us.
Yeah, it's
many of you haven't come to know she's actually been diagnosed with MS. So prayers go up to her and her family for certain, for a speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
And God-given strength on that. So, but we need to see, and this is the thing. This is the difference between us and them. Those who are the ones that suffer from Trump-Pet syndrome, as opposed to Tourette syndrome or thrombosis,
bovine excrementitis. Yes.
There's a key difference between us and them. We are willing to uplift each other. They want to tear each other down. There's so much infighting amongst themselves that they want to project onto everybody else to say that everybody else is fighting them and backfighting with them, because they're the ones who are doing it to themselves. They're like the Leviathan that's consuming itself.
Mm. Well, and it's because the candidate they follow is the candidate of division. Remember, it goes back to what we were saying in the first segment of the program. It's that Donald Trump loves trannies, is purposefully being consistently inconsistent because, as Paul Manafort was saying, he's trying to just project this faux image. He's not really what he's claiming to be. And the reason he's doing that is he is wanting to propel this caricature so that the Democrats come in the general election can centralize on that, engage in the Solinsky rules for radicals tactics that they believe in, thereby destroying conservatism for generations to come. You see, that's where Rush Limbaugh had it wrong when he said that if Ted Cruz were to secure the nomination on the second ballot at the Republican National Convention in Cincinnati, Ohio, that it would be the death of the Republican Party. Well, okay, let's, for argument's sake, say that's true. Fine. It would be the death of the Republican Party. But if Trump was to secure that nomination, it would be the death of conservatism, that it would take a very long time to bring it back. It would take a second coming of Barry Goldwater to reinstate a conservative movement.
It would not only be that, I'm going to take it a step further. It would be the near death of this republic.
Yes.
Our republic would essentially be placed on immediate life support if that was to happen. And again, I don't understand why individuals cannot see this. Trump cannot beat Hillary Clinton. Why? He has no inclination to do so. And even if he did have the inclination,
his negatives are far too high.
He doesn't have the wherewithal. He doesn't have the intellectual capacity, only because his intellectual capacity is equivalent to the ovulation cycle of a gnat when it comes to political things.
In other words, it's non-existent.
Foreign policy. I mean, the guy is completely incompetent when it comes to these things.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to resort to the next best thing. Well, I don't know anything about this, so I'm going to do whatever I can to see how I can make a quick buck from it.
Yeah.
That's all he cares about.
Yeah.
He knows jack all with nothing to do with politics, foreign policy, the issues that are going on. We know he has no principles. I've asked that question numerous times. What are his principles and where are they written in the Constitution? The simple answer is this. Where they're found in the Constitution, Article 9, Section existing, Clause 0.
Yeah.
They are not there. He has no principles. And again, that is further emboldened by the fact that he said, I've never read the Constitution because I have not found any value in it. Now, how can an individual want to be the leader of the free world who is to take an oath to support, defend the United States Constitution, the supreme law of the land, if he sees no value in it?
Well, you see, what he's doing there is he is purposefully disqualifying himself from being able to wield the reins of political power in this country. And it comes down to the only thing that is important there with respect to him is he has been consistent up until he officially threw his hat in the ring for the 2016 presidential election cycle. Stop and think about this, folks. He always tries to compare himself to Reagan. Yet when Reagan was there and on the scene, he called him an idiot, a fool. He said that he was destroying the country. And the difference between Reagan, who was a conservative Democrat, and Trump is that by the time Reagan became governor of California, he had a well-established, decades-long history of at least supporting conservative causes. Trump, as far back as as recently rather as 2014, was seen schmoozing with Terry McAuliffe, the tax cheat, the Democrat fascist leader of Virginia, governor of Virginia now, who has passed an executive order allowing convicted felons to vote, which, by the way, really should be a violation of not just state law, but federal law, because federal law prohibits that.
Yes.
But Trump gave this guy $25,000 in his campaign in 2009. That's not ancient history, folks. But I've heard so many of the Trump acolytes say that he is the second coming of Reagan. Really? Do you think Ronald Reagan would have supported a Terry McAuliffe even after his second amendment or his second term? No. Even though he wasn't that great in his second term, he still wasn't that bat excrement crazy as to support someone who doesn't even try to hide the fact that he is a Fabian socialist, that he is attempting to tear this country apart at the seams. These are the sorts of things that we have to bring to the forefront. But again, due to the propagandistic agenda of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, this is being swept under the rug.
Yeah. And what's worse is individuals want to, they play this game of, well, if you...
Oh dear, yeah. It comes down to what they're trying to do is attack the foundations of the country. They are attempting to destroy who we are as a nation and a people. And why they do that is they are seeking to replace us. They're seeking to make us just a dependent form of a base for the nation that has to go to them for permission for everything. And so in that sense, it's completely upside down and backwards from what we really are, which is the supreme sovereigns. They want to say, no, sovereignty rests in the hands of the government. And of course, that goes against everything that our founding fathers wanted for this country.
Well, and again, these Trump supporters, they want to play this game of, well, if you don't vote for Trump, then you're surely going to vote for Hillary. If Trump gets the nominee or the nomination and you don't support him, then it's an automatic vote for Hillary. Well, I asked the question, okay, what if Cruz gets the nomination? Well, I'll write Trump in. I'm going to vote for Trump. So it's okay for you to tell people how to vote and disparage them because they're going to abide by their principles, because their principles will not dictate them to be able to vote for somebody who's diametrically opposed to it. And so you won't support Ted Cruz if he's the nominee. Instead, you'll write Donald Trump in because, what, you're told to? Because you're told how to think? Because you follow this mantra of, well, it's Trump or nothing else?
Yeah.
See, that's a problem. That's called hypocrisy. And not all frauds are hypocritical, but all hypocrites are frauds.
Mm.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that works. You cannot tell somebody, well, if you don't do this, then this is going to happen, and then turn right around and do the exact opposite you tell somebody else not to do.
Mm. Yeah, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's really what that comes down to. Yeah. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. But you see, this is what is so laughable about the 2016 presidential election cycle. We've heard some of the most vocal and ardent acolytes of the Donaldoff come out and say that the reason they're supporting him is A, he's not a politician, B, he shoots straight, C, he is the only one that is willing to stand up to these things, except they ignore the fact that he funded it, allowed it to exist, that he is the one that perpetuated this for well over 3 decades. And what's so amazing is when you show them that he isn't supporting any of this and that he is of the type that he thinks that the law shouldn't apply to him, which could be seen in the way that he dealt with the Polish Brigade, with the demolition of the Bonwit Teller store upon which he built Trump Tower and various other things. They say they're mad at the elitists. And so in order to go after the establishment or the elitists, they're going to put in the guy who's been funding it for decades.
Yeah, but Trump.
Yeah. That's literally what it comes down to.
Yeah, but Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And now here's the other thing. Going back on what you said, his acolytes and his supporters say he's not a politician. Wrong. The second he threw his hat in the ring, he became a politician.
Well, Jeremy, I'll take it a step further than that. I'll take it a step further than that. The second he became the leader of a business, he became a politician.
He became a politician, right. And next point that you made, well, he's railing against this and that, the establishment and so on and so forth. Everything that Trump has said at the beginning of his campaign, talking about closing the borders, building a wall, talking about railing against the establishment, they lied to you, this and that. All of those things, Ted Cruz said 3 years ago.
And what was Trump doing at that time?
And this is even more profound. Trump was the one that was funding people like the Gang of Eight. He was the one that was funding people like Dianne Feinstein and supporting her gun grab bill, her assault weapons ban of 2013. He supported her on that. He supported all of these things that now he is claiming that he is against, but yet the only true person that is still in the race, that has stood firm against all of that stuff, is Ted Cruz. While Trump was funding those individuals, funding the establishment, Ted Cruz was fighting against them, standing up to them. And he has not backed down since, which means Ted Cruz has essentially been fighting against Donald Trump for the past 3 or 4 years.
Of course. And you see, that's the other point that they try and make, is that they are supporting Trump because he's unwilling to back down. Well, he certainly backed down when it came to the transgender bathroom issue. That's why the name of this episode is Trump Loves Trannies.
Yeah. And I'm going to take it a step further. Ted Cruz is actually fighting against Trump even before Ted Cruz became a senator.
Going all the way back to Texas Solicitor General.
Solicitor General.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing it as Texas Solicitor General because every time he went in front of the Supreme Court and argued those cases, he was arguing against the very same things that Trump was funding and supporting back at that time.
Mm.
So Cruz has been battling and confronting Trump on this long before he was even a politician.
Yeah. Well, look, Trump was engaging in this type of chicanery before Cruz was even born.
Yes.
That's how deep set this is. And the fact that people can't see this is amazing to me. Now, but Trump is essentially what it comes down to. You know, it reminds me of that old figurine of the 3 monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
See no evil, speak no evil.
Yeah, it's equivalent to the Trump supporters. That would be, if I had to build a monument to the Trump supporters, that would be it. That would be their monument. Here you go. And it would be juxtaposed to the Republic being up in flames, and they would be so persistent that even Nero would be out on a balcony dropping his violin in shock at just how far they are willing to ignore the real perils.
Yeah. And what's even worse yet, if such a monument was erected, they would bow at that altar and worship it. Even though it's an absolute insult and derogatory towards them, they would still worship it because they have become that delusional.
Mm-hmm.
They've become that manipulated and that brainwashed.
Yeah.
That, folks, that right there is what is so distraught and disparaging and so heartbreaking when it comes to our republic and our sovereigns.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only that, it's embarrassing. And people wonder why other countries are laughing at us. When France is laughing at you, and you are supposed to be the world superpower, the most stable, dominant country in the whole world on God's green earth, and France is laughing at you and getting away with it, we have a major problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not other countries. It's no other country. It is us.
Mm-hmm.
We the people have become we the problem.
Yeah.
And we need to stop.
Right. And what it boils down to is that our founding fathers expected us to be proactive in safeguarding and maintaining our fundamental and inalienable rights. And it goes back to that great lesson, that great truth, that truth that was self-evident, which George Mason and Thomas Jefferson discovered when they were engaged in the drafting of the Declaration of Rights for the state of Virginia. And that is this: the fundamental and inalienable rights that were handed down to, endowed to the people who are the ultimate wielders of sovereignty, was done from their creator, the God of nature. Therefore, the only way that those rights could be removed is if there was due process, a showing in a court at law that we or the accused had engaged in some sort of conduct that illicitly infringed upon the rights of someone else. So again, that loops back to what we've said going back to the start of this episode, is that, and particularly with the start of this segment, linking it back to the Harvard law students, look, when you infringe upon the rights of someone else, you lose your rights in that sense, because your rights end where another person's rights begins. And we have got to get back to respecting that, because for so long as we don't respect that, then we are only going to see the death spiral of this community, this great representative republic, which has had the longest contiguous running constitution in all of world history, collapse. And there will be nothing at that point which could be done to stop it, because the American people have ceded their power, which is a non-negotiable, non-delegable power, to the charlatans, the frauds, the hucksters, the con artists, the snake oil salesmen that are out to destroy us. That, again, is why we bring this show to you. It is to empower you to stand up against it. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. Maybe we could also give you a Harvard Law pin while we're at it, so that we could all protest together and destroy everything. Yeah, that seems smart, right? Anyway, once again, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I've been joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapington. We would like to take this opportunity to personally thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. We hope that you leave any questions or comments or concerns you might have, either here on our YouTube page, our Google Plus page, or our Facebook page. And on top of this, we invite you to follow us at Twitter with the Twitter handle at Radio Aviation EX. One more time, at Radio Aviation EX. And there you will find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, Jeremy's personal Twitter account, and our Blogspot page, as well as our Cafe Press account. And Jeremy, tell them what's on the Cafe Press account.
Well, folks, you can enjoy the last round of alcohol every show with valuable Wright Flyer drinking glasses, shot glasses, so on and so forth. And you can also do it in style with baseball caps or other apparel and attire that you can purchase. You can show off to your friends that you're a supporter or first-class passenger of the Wright Flyer by purchasing bumper stickers, window decals, various other odds and ends and goodies.
You can even protect your cell phone.
True supporter.
You can even protect your cell phone. So you see, folks, give us a little bit of support there and help us out. We will see you next time. Do take care.